Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here today. We want to welcome all of our notorious women and our one lovely notorious gentleman to the panel. First up, we have Cybill Shepherd and Steve Guttenberg, the stars of How to Murder Your Husband, the Nancy Brophy story.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, guys. Next, we have Celina Sinden, star of Bad Behind Bars, Jodi Arias.
Hello.
Hello, Celina.
Jaime King from Hoax, The Kidnapping of Sherry Papini.
Jamie.
Hello.
Hello.
And Jennifer Grey, who stars in Gwen Shamlin, Starving for Salvation.
Yippee, Jennifer.
Yeah, Jen.
Also joining us today is Tanya Lopez, EVP of Scripted Programming for Lifetime.
Tanya!
Welcome. Yippee!
Welcome, all of you. Tanya, let's start with a question for you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, starting it off.
I didn't kill anybody yet. Okay. So.
Why did you choose to tell the stories of these particular notorious women?
You know, what I love about every one of these women that represent real women is that they're complicated, and that these women get to tell the narrative of the story of what happened to them, as opposed to someone else telling their story. And they're nuanced. These women are layered, they're complicated, and they're not always what we would all see as particularly honorable, but they're very bright and they're smart, and they're going through issues that are, I think, coming through different points of view. So I love a complicated woman.
Awesome. Thank you, Tanya. Well, right now, I think if all of you wonderful actors could briefly tell us why you were drawn to these projects and why you decided to join each film. Why don't we start with Cybill and Steve?
Sure. I had never played a murderer before that I recall. And I was fascinated by this story. And when I heard that Steve would be doing it, I couldn't think of a nicer person to have to murder.
Yeah.
A lovely, wonderful guy. I mean, it made it so much more difficult to play the murderer of this guy that I love so much.
It's okay. It was murder out of love, and that's why I did it. I love passion. There's nothing like passion. And even if it comes to murder, you had a good time before the murder. So that's why I decided to do this bit.
Well, it didn't come easy, my murdering you, you know, it didn't just happen overnight.
No,
or did it?
No, it was a long, drawn out game, but I was happy to have a little blood at your hands. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Mon plaisir.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Celina, how about you next?
Yeah, I think a lot of what drew me to the character in the story was already said by Tanya so eloquently. I wasn't aware of Jodi's story because I grew up in England and it wasn't a story that reached me. So I kind of came at it with fresh eyes, and I can see why she captivated the public. She was a very charismatic character, very complex. So I was really drawn to her, really.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Jamie?
Yes. With Sherry was quite interesting because I had read a news article one day, it just popped up. And as soon as I read it, I immediately felt something was off, like something, the way that they conveyed this woman was off. And so I at first thought, oh, I should option this story. Someone needs to tell this story. So I should option it for my production company. And it was so strange because then I was like, or Lifetime should do, like, someone needs to tell this story, because again, something was, the way that they were portraying her didn't seem accurate to me. They weren't getting to the truth of it. It was just a headline. And then cut to like less than 24 hours later, I get an offer from our beloved Tanya for this film. And it was like Bashir, it was kismet, it was totally meant to be. it was stunning to me. Like when my manager told me like, oh, this is the story, I was like, wait, hold on. Because I'd already been doing the research for the past like 24 hours before I got the offer for it. And I think what's really important about these pictures and these stories is the opportunity to explore all the aspects and all the sides of it, and let the audiences decide, and also give a voice to people, you know, that have their voices taken away, especially someone like Sherry, you know, who is a felon. So her name, her likeness, any rights that she has to her life are stripped from her. And as storytellers, it's our job, you know, to tell the best that we can of all sides of things. And so there's something that resonated with me about her. And it was ultimately that I felt that the media was not really taking account for her mental health or other contributing factors. So, yeah.
Thanks, Jaime. And Jennifer?
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be part of such an amazing group of women. I can't wait to watch all of your movies. They, especially having heard what you said about them, they all sound so interesting. And I was so thrilled when I got this offer, because I was like the weirdest, most random. Like I was a Christian cult leader, a woman who was like a diet guru, none of which I am Christian, nor do I diet, nor do I. I'm a fan of learning about cults, but it's just like everything was so foreign to me. And so the first thing I did was look at what she looked like. And I was just like, well, that seems like such an obvious fit. Of course they called me. It was just like the most crazy visual. And so I immediately looked at the HBO documentary called The Way Down. And it's a 2-part doc. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you do. It's really well done. And I was stunned by the ferocity of this woman who grew up, with the Church of Christ in Tennessee, and in a world where the church and the church leaders are all men, very conservative, almost like Handmaid's Tale, super disempowered. And this woman, obsessed with losing weight and unable to lose weight, decides to make this faith-based diet, which, is interesting because, as we all know, there's lots of 12-step programs where you bring God in to help, relieve you from what you're powerless over. And I was like, well, that's an interesting way to look at it. And then what I saw was, it's so hard to just make it into a soundbite, but this woman began to grow over 20 years with this best-selling book. And there's more material. I couldn't get to the bottom of the amount of material that's available on the internet with 3 Larry Kings, I believe. It's like Tyra Banks' show, The View. She was everywhere. And she was touted as this incredible faith-based diet guru. And then she started her own church called the Remnant Fellowship. And then it got really dark, really dark. And then it became that idea of power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And what happened from like, guess what? You can do this. You just have to ask God, it's like the idea of sin and the amount of people in the world who are so desperately sure that they are unlovable and sinful because they're fat, because they're not a certain body shape. And that to me was super alarming. And I said to Tanya, the only way that I will do this is that I cannot condone what she preaches, because it is so sick. It is so anathema to me. So all I want to do is, because I know how incredibly epidemic the eating disorder world is. And this woman was like the voice of anorexia. She was like our patron saint of anorexia. She is like, I've never, fortunately, ever had an eating disorder, but it is such a devastating mental illness. And this woman was the personification of you are evil, you are sinning, and it is, your hunger is a sin and you need to fill it with God. And then how she took that and basically made it about her empire and her own personal gain and what she did to people's lives and how they willingly signed up for it and did the most hideous things to their children because she was so charismatic and because she isolated people from the rest of the healthy world, that they became fully dependent on her. And then she completely took advantage of it. So to me, it was about how can we hear that voice inside our heads, the ways in which we think we're not good enough as we are, and the ways we think that we need to be a certain shape or need to be a certain number on the scale. And how can we love ourselves and not empower somebody who basically is using us for their own gain? It's complex. And thank you so much, Tanya, for thinking of me. It's one of the greatest jobs I've ever had in my life.
Wow. Thank you guys all so much. We're going to jump into some press questions now. First up is Jay Bobbin.
Hello. Thank you, everyone, for doing this. Good afternoon.
Jay.
Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Cybill and Steve. Jamie, my question is for you, and it's actually kind of two questions in one. It's interesting you did the research, as you say, before actually getting the offer for this. Did what you knew already about Sherry match up to what was in the script, or did you find yourself wanting to embellish it with certain things that you found from your research? And also, the second part of the question, when you say you found something that was off with her when you first did your research, were you able to easily dial it back to where Sherry needed to be at the start of the script, or was it a bigger challenge for you than normal in terms of kind of bringing her back to square one with all we know about her now?
I'm going to answer the question in reverse.
Sure.
So the question for number two is, it wasn't what I thought was off about her. Mm-hmm. When I first read this story, I felt there was something off about the way that she was, the salaciousness to her story. I felt her like she was being muffled, like that some part of the story was missing, meaning her voice. And the media has a way of taking, as we all know, stories and, for better or for worse, the person becomes obsolete, but yet they're the star. Mm-hmm. And it really upset me. Like, I saw the story and it really upset me. I'm like, this is a mother. No one makes that choice for no reason. So I really went down that rabbit hole, just as a human being, because I just felt like it. I was tired of it. I was tired of, just the way that, that so many voices are unheard. So it was really about being allowed, again, thank God for Tanya, like being allowed the freedom to, take a story that so many people know about, that's all over the world, which I just read again the day before I got the offer, right? But I watched every single piece of material, every interview, every this, every da 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 da. And while you're doing this, what you uncover again is that if you're a felon, you have no rights to your name and likeness, which is a fine and delicate dance that the studio has to do, right? And then everybody else has a right, even though they may or may not have been abusing that person, et cetera, right? So to go back from the way that she was portrayed was to really present and connect to what I believe was the truth of her that met the truth inside of me, and present that, because ultimately, I just wanted to tell the truth, though like a Rorschach, really, and maybe give her an opportunity, or people an opportunity, to just take a look that, there's always something deeper, that you can make fun of mental health issues, you can deny abuse issues but I'm simply just, I'm not willing to do that. And to be able, as a storyteller, to be able to present it in a real way and then give it back to the audience. It's all for the people, you know, we're just reflecting humanity back to humanity, and they can decide what happened, you know, but it was really important to me to not have her humanity taken away just because they decided that it was a good, you know, press clip.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is for Jamie Ruby.
Hi, thanks for talking to us today. Celina and Cybill, you both play killers, obviously, and we've heard from the other actresses about connecting to the characters. Can you sort of talk about how you got into the mind of these killers?
I'll let you go first, Cybill.
You're muted. Here you go.
I'm muted now. I'm not. Well, the way I look at acting, actors have so many different ways, but the way I look at it is 50% of how I come up with the character is what I look like. So when I had my first look at myself in that gray wig, I started to become that character. And by the time I see this film, I don't know who that woman is in there because I'm no longer that person. And so it helped me, the wig, the way it was written, the way it was brilliantly directed, the way it was wonderfully acted. I mean, having to kill a man that I love so much as Steve, and having to get to the point in my emotional health and my psychological being disturbed to actually murder somebody, a man that I love. I mean, that was, and a man that I love off screen too. It was very difficult. But once I began to see myself in the gray wig and I began to transform into a murderer, it became far more easy to murder.
Celina?
I would usually agree with you, Cybill, that like having a costume to help get into the role is so helpful and so delicious and delightful. Unfortunately, my Jodie was in jail, so I couldn't really use costume or hair or makeup.
Well, jail, I think a jail outfit is kind of an outfit.
Oh, it's definitely an outfit.
Yeah.
It wasn't indicative of Jodie and who she really is when she wasn't in jail. So I don't know. I tried to use her voice as much as I could to kind of step into being Jodie and that mindset. I think that one of the really interesting things about Jodie is that when you see footage of her, and there is so much to see online, she doesn't come across as what you would imagine a killer to be. She's very soft-spoken and very sweet and very girlish, and she doesn't look physically strong. And I think I tried to put the crime in my head to one side and focus on her as a character.
Great, thank you, both of you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Monica Gleiberman.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys so much for doing this. I'm so excited. The movies are so good. I have two questions. They're kind of sort of related. My first one is for Jennifer and for Cybill. I know for Cybill, you play obviously Nancy, and for Jennifer, you play Gwen. Both of these characters kind of approach the way that they kind of attack, whether, you know, it's murder or it's influencing other people in different ways. So how did you kind of prep? I know that you talked a little bit about, you know, doing research and stuff like that, but how did you kind of get into the mindset of making that kind of work for you as an actor? And then my second question is kind of for everyone. You're all obviously famous and you share, you know, different fame, luckily not the same as murdering someone, but different fame, but it's similar in the aspect, Jamie, you were kind of talking about this and how it's viewed, right? You don't have a control over your likeness and how you're viewed in a lot of aspects. So did you all find ways to relate to your character, which is, you know, a real person in that way?
Well, unless Cybill's going to go first, you're going to have to repeat the first question because I have such bad ADHD. I'm like, all I heard was the last 3 words you said again. Like that's all I heard.
No problem. I wanted to know about your.
Can go right away.
I'm not the only one.
So it's just basically for Cybill and Jennifer about your characters, the different approaches that they made as women to kind of get to the end result that they wanted and how you kind of stepped into that role. And then for everyone, just how it's...
Wait, don't do it again.
Oh, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so Cybill, do you want to take it first?
No, you go ahead, please.
Because I still don't get the question, so I want to hear how you answer it.
So how did I get to the point where I could murder a man I love so much?
Yeah, like what did you like work on, or are there certain aspects that you did besides just like researching Nancy to try to get into character and make it work for you and make it reasonable in your mind?
Well, I think what helps a lot is a brilliant director, a brilliant script, a great network that's behind the project, the magnificent casting of someone that no one would ever want to see to be murdered. And then to get to the point where I could believe by the way I looked at myself with the gray wig that I had become this horrible person capable of murdering the man I love most in the world.
And then Jennifer, how is it for you? Because that she comes from a completely different place to kind of attack people.
Well, I never look at people as bad. I look at them as like, where is it coming from? So I knew that I had to, because her hair was so bananas, I knew that I had to start with the wig. And then I knew that I'd never worn a wig before. And my wigs are extraordinarily built by Rob Pickens, this incredible wig maker. And I knew that I said to Tanya, I said, I will do this, but I need to have 2 first-rate wigs. Like you're going to have to just, and I even told the wig maker, I said, I'll pay for it. If my deal doesn't go through, I will pay for this wig, but I am not going to sleep on this. I'm going to like wig first. And then I immediately started working with a dialect coach because I've never done a dialect. And it was a very, very strong dialect. And when you're playing someone who's a real human being with enormous, I experience enormous responsibility to be as true as I can to the person. And and her vocal quality and her dialect, everything about it was so foreign to me. And then I sometimes just started with the outside of the wig, the costumes, the dialect, and the script was perfect when it came to me. Like I had no notes. It was just like fantastic. And what I did was it starts to work me. And I had to like make myself talk with the accent all the time because I was so unused to doing a dialect and it was so scary to me. And the idea was, the more I did the dialect in my life, I started to be unable to not do the dialect. And it just kind of took hold. And then I just started I would go on set, and I'm not the person who you have to call me by my character, and I'm not that girl. I am literally making jokes in between every take just to keep myself loose. So I'm always me, but I could just, all of a sudden, I started to feel I could just slip into her. And I was like, I listen to music, I do playlists, I do all sorts of things to kind of change my state, my nervous system. And I just mess around with what I've been doing my whole career, which is just surround myself with things that are evocative of faith, of like, I just had like a playlist of all of this religious music that I connected with. Some of it was like Sikh music. It was just stuff that had to do with transcendence and really about, this is a woman who wanted to help people. And I understand what it's like to want to be able to impart wisdom. If I have a solution, or if I've done research, if I figured out something that works for me, there's nothing that thrills me more than to share it with you and to help another person. And I believe that is where she started. She started with, I can't lose this weight. And then I begged God, and God removed it and made it so that I could. So I believe it started from a place of wanting to share her solution to people who are fellow sufferers. And then what happens is it just becomes like, it's like I'm like a virus that took over and became like, I know what you're all doing wrong. And like I always say, if you meet someone who has all the answers and tells you that they've got it figured out, run. Because I believe that is the biggest red flag for anybody, and that there is no answer, there is no silver bullet, but we're also desperate for someone to give us the marching orders, the operating instructions for how to do a life, or how to feel good about yourself, or how to feel more pleasure, or how to have more self-love. And if I could tell you how to do that today, I would be so excited to share that with you, and you'd be so excited to get it. And next thing you know, we're off to the races. And then that kind of feeling of power that just starts to take over. I just felt like I just kept wanting her to help people and believe that she was helping and doing good. That's all I kept thinking.
And then really quickly, my second question is just for all of you, because you're all famous. Did you guys relate on a human level? Jamie, you were kind of talking about this, that you kind of lose your likeness as actresses, right? And that people take your photos and do various things. Did you relate to your characters because they're real women and a lot of them lost their likeness and lost their narrative? So did you relate on that level?
I don't, no. I don't relate it to fame. I don't relate it to fame. It's funny. I relate it to being a human being, right? And like the way that I grew up, being heard or not being heard, what I saw, what I didn't see, and what I feel is my duty, my service is to tell stories and to share the perspectives of people that don't have their voices. Frankly, fame is a funny thing to me, like the idea of it, and even celebrity. The only purpose to me is if fame or celebrity is the opportunity to reach more people, and again reflect humanity back to humanity. That's what I'm about. But I'm not like, that's not my life, you know. Like it's really, really deeply important to be able to see from the ordinariness. Like ordinariness to me is like the key of everything, you know, the everyday life. You know, I don't ever want to miss out on anything like that. And with Sherry, yeah, it's super important now more than ever that everybody's stories be told in a very specific way. And specificity is really key, because the more specific that I am inside of myself, again, the more as it's presented, I'm not swaying someone. It's just I have a clear directive of just being centered in the truth of how I experience that human being, because it's not just me playing somebody. You know, it's like what Cybill and Jennifer are saying. It's like, how do you get it into your body? You know, and it does start with the wig. For me, it was extensions, these long extensions that were down to like my waist. And I'd wake up, boom, 6:30 a.m. crying from the weight of these things. And that sounds dramatic, but it wasn't, because it's like at the end of the day, you want to like take the character, like release from the character, but you can't, because they're literally in your head, you know. And so you're immersed in it, and then you surrender to that process. And that's a big, you know, it's a very big part of it. And again, hopefully we just like, I'm just so astonished really in listening to all of these, like the actors that I admire the most talk about their characters, and the question of fame. And it's like, I'm like sitting before the masters of acting, and I'm just stunned by it, because it's like, it's not about fame. It's that all of these human beings touch my life in a way that has and will forever change me, you know. And that's really what it's all about.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
We have a question from our mylifetime.com team. This question is actually for Steve. It's a little bit on the lighter side. Steve, did you pick up any chef skills while you were on set, and do you cook in real life?
I didn't want to reveal this now, but I guess this is a great time. Celina, Jennifer, Jamie, Tanya, Cybill, I have 10-course meals coming to each of one of your houses tonight, which I worked on all last night. That's why I look a little tired. There'll be fish, there'll be game, there'll be meat, chicken, and for you vegans, an entire vegan meal. So yes, I did learn a little bit off the set. I really am not really into acting per se. I sort of am there for the money. So I really don't have much to say about the acting, let's say the acting. But I did a lot of chopping and killing animals during and those animals will be what you'll be eating tonight, unless of course you're a vegan. It's all plant-based. I didn't, and that's actually not a funny answer. That's actually serious. So.
Okay, I was trying not to laugh.
Well, thank you.
I can't help it.
Thank you for the question. I can go now, right? Can I go have a sandwich?
We would love it if you'd stick around. We would love it if you'd stick around.
I was promised one question and now I can leave. I guess no. Okay,
you're gonna have to take it up with Tanya. Our next question is from Suzanne from TV Meg.
Hi. Well, I have to follow that, huh? So why do you all think that true crime is so popular now in movies, TV shows, and podcasts? And do you think Lifetime started it with these type of movies? Anyone who'd like to start?
I think, if I may, what Lifetime has done is really stunning, because when we say quote unquote true crime, I think that people love to explore other people's minds, because we all have every facet inside of ourselves, right? But the thing about what Tanya has done and the team has done is create this space where it's not just one POV, it's not just one way. It really allows what any good picture should do, the audience to explore it and make discernments and ask questions for themselves with the breadth and the depth of truth.
I think, I think one of the things that we found at Lifetime, and we've been doing this for years, is that women love to learn something different. They love to learn about other women. They love to learn about why people do what they do. And when it comes to true stories, it's even more fascinating. And I think that is sort of what we had learned over the years. And then also we want to be able to tell the audience what they didn't know, what they didn't see. And so when the audience comes to Lifetime, they're just not reading a headline. What they're finding out is what's beneath and what's behind the story. And I think that's truly been a success to Lifetime Rip from the Headlines movies. And that's the legacy we've had, and the legacy that the team, there's a lot of people behind this. I love that I'm here, but I really have to give a shout out to everybody on the team that actually brings these stories to life, and the writers. But I do believe that's the secret sauce, that what makes these Lifetime movies special is we give and acknowledge the story behind the story.
Anyone else?
Thank you so much. Oh,
that's good. Thank you.
I like, I'll just say one thing, which is because the specificity of women who are considered, bad women, I think that's really interesting, because there is something I think when women misbehave in a patriarchal society, it's very easy to slam them and it's just not an even playing field. And there's something when women act out, like what happened to them? Who hurt you? What happened to you to make you act out, which we know it's not like, if you can make a generalization, which you shouldn't do, but if you were to, like, it takes a lot to get women to behave really badly, in my opinion. And it's so frowned upon in our culture to not be good and not be likable and to do shocking things. And there's so much why underneath it psychologically. There's so much more to mine about what did you come from that has made you unable to understand that you're killing people and abusing children and telling people to lock their children in a room from Friday to Monday with nothing but a Bible in the room to get them to behave, to get them to be obedient. What kind of abuse did you suffer in order for you to justify that kind of teaching that is basically what happens in the Gwen Shamblin story? There is something so broken under that kind of misbehavior, if you will. And I'm just curious about what happened to get someone to a point where they have no empathy and compassion, because there's a brokenness that is beyond my ken,
Well,
so
I think that my character's father was an abusive alcoholic. I know that must have contributed somehow to how I could end up feel so forced to murder the man I love most in the world.
I have something to say about Lifetime in these movies from a man's perspective. I'm fascinated by the power of these women. A matriarchal society is always more successful than a patriarchal society. It just is. Women are smarter. Women are able to survive much easier. Women have not only a softer approach.
Stop flirting with everybody, Steve. I see what
you're talking about.
Oh, I thought, well.
Are you talking to flirting?
I thought
Who are you talking to?
I thought that this would.
I was making a joke.
Oh,
Jennifer,
you're making a joke.
I thought this would get you all to my house, but obviously not, because
it was just a joke, because he was talking about how smart women are.
You gave it up now. No, so this was my only way to get you guys to my house. But whenever I watch the network, I'm always compelled to understand women better. There's nothing like being a fly on the wall for a guy. And we guys, frankly, are dumb. We are dumb and we are selfish, and we think the whole world revolves around us. The truth is, it doesn't. And it takes something, like you were saying, Jennifer, something really mysterious and then understandable why it drives someone mad. Mm-hmm. But as a man, we all want to have great relationships with women. And like any human being, there's everybody's multifaceted, and there's a myriad of personalities. But I find myself, when I'm watching the network, I can't take my eyes off it to see powerful women and how they behave. And it's fascinating to me, and also a bit frightening to understand that we men are not in charge. We're not. We think we are, but we're not. And that's what I glean from watching the network, because all these women's stories, and I think it's I watch them with my wife, with my mom, with my sisters, with friends, and I really enjoy the work. And not to also try to get you guys to my house, but I am. The acting is great. The performances are so committed and so true, and like Jaime and Celina was saying, so real and dedicated to preserving the person. So the talent and the level of talent and the work is just great to watch, just from a guy's point of view. It really is great to watch.
Thank you so much, Steve. We are coming to having only about 10 minutes left here. So what we're going to do now is sort of a speed round. So let's try a couple more questions from Mark Berman.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for doing this. I'm curious for any of the actors or all of you, if you'd like to answer, when you do a role like this and the movie's scheduled on a certain date, and I'm wondering, do you actually sit down and watch it? And if you do, are you able to watch and just consume the movie, or do you look at it and think, do you look at it with a critical eye and, you know, to your performance? So do you watch yourselves? That's my real question.
I don't think we have a chance to watch ourselves. Did you?
I watch myself a lot. Yes.
Oh, you do? Because I don't remember I don't remember being given a choice of whether to see myself. I think I probably would not prefer not to see myself, because I don't want to be controlled by like what my expressions look like. I want them to come from inside. I don't want to think about.
Well, I mean, when the movie actually airs, when it's
Are you
on.
talking about dailies or like?
No, not the dailies.
Oh, okay.
You're done.
Okay.
You're finished. You're done, and the movie's on. After it's all done, do you actually sit down and watch?
I don't.
I tried, but I was so disturbed by my character and how horrible she was, and how wonderful the husband she was that she was considering murdering. It's very difficult for me to watch it. I found myself absolutely horrified by who I was in this show, and it wasn't just the gray wig. It was the whole process that, like I said, we're all different. All actors are different, but I take 50% from how I end up looking, like how I look in front of the camera. That changes who I am. And once I saw myself, I could hardly make it through the film, because I found myself so horrible for murdering this wonderful man whom I adore now. And I can't wait to meet his wife, Emily. I'm going to start singing a song, Emily. I love you, Emily.
Anybody else?
No, we're not going to murder any more wives, okay? Oh, no, that was me that murdered my husband.
I watched our film, and I honestly don't really watch anything that I do. I'll watch dailies as a producer. So if I'm in something, and it's obviously I have to watch the dailies if I'm producing for the whole, feature or the series. But I typically don't watch what I do because it's the process. I'm about like the process, and it's so collaborative that in the end, like if I'm not producing it, it's really about like, okay, I give all this, and then you give it to your filmmaker and the studio, and they do what they do, and you give it to the world. But with this one, it was for her as her advocate. And it was really kind of like one of my best friends was like, wait, you're going to watch it? Like stunned, like, oh, you're going to watch it? I was like, I know, right? Because I don't watch anything, but it was so important to me to just know that I could rest easy, that if ever she sees it, that maybe I, through, the studio, was allowed to give her some kind of a voice. That's it, and make sure that I did like a decent job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have our next question from Rick Bentley? Rick, do you want to unmute?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Hi.
I'm so sorry. Hey, Steve, I apologize for making you talk about acting again, but I'm just curious, when you got the script and you knew you had to play a character that was enough that somebody would have a murderous attitude toward him, but you didn't want to play him over the top. How did you find that sort of level of playing that character?
Oh, thanks. Just quickly, what I try to do is I read within a week the script about 10 times to try to understand the writer and the director, the producer and the studio and Tanya's point of view, what the whole piece is trying to say. And then I've played true life characters a few times, and I find that it's a little easier for me because I've got video and I've got photographs and I've got sound that I can listen and watch how they move and sort of get inside their head. And for this particular guy, Daniel Brophy, I feel he was a little bit more complicated than just being a nice man. This was his second marriage, and he had some problems with his first. He came from the Dakotas. He was actually known as a quiet guy, a guy who was terrifically gregarious and class and work, but at home or with groups of people, he was quiet. So I just wanted to dedicate myself to honoring the guy because he was dead and giving him some dimension. But I was really here to support Cybill. I'm here to support the play. And I really enjoyed doing my job, which was to explain why Nancy was how Nancy was. And what I really find, and this is just to get a little bigger, and Jennifer, I'm not trying to seduce you guys, is that I find that everybody, as I've heard all the ladies speak, everybody was earning their moments. The work that all these actresses have done, is all the research and all the hard work before you get to the set is just magnanimous. It's just beautiful to hear people so dedicated to the work, and they earn the moments. So when you see a show, and including my character, the work that we do earns those wonderful moments where the audience understands a little bit more and sees a little bit more. And I think, in a large faction, I love actors and I love acting and I love creating true emotion in those imaginary circumstances. And you can see all the actresses here, they want to do that too. So that's basically what I was trying to do, was trying to earn my moments by doing as much research as I could. And that's why I found my fellow actors here. Everybody else was doing that too. So it's pretty wonderful to be part of this group. And that's really what we all do. We try to get to the place when we're starting to work that we're prepared and we can earn all our wonderful moments that explain to the audience, that's what's going on. So
I want to thank you for that.
Oh.
That was the loveliest thing.
Oh.
It really was. And I want to thank everybody here because I think we've all been incredibly blessed. And I have to say, if you're forced in your life to play a character who's going to murder such a lovely man as this wonderful actor right here, it's made me cry because he's such a generous, wonderful guy. I want to thank you all. I'm just a crybaby. That's what happens to be your grandma. You
Thank
be a grandma. You start crying and everything.
Beautiful. I mean,
thank you so much.
What's so clear is how much connection there is between you. And it's such a beautiful thing to be able to have the intimacy that is afforded when you work with somebody, to actually feel the support of somebody. And that's what I see when I see the two of you. And I saw you look like, I was like, you thought I was attacking him and you were like ready to tear my head off. And I was like, but the thing is that you have each other's back. And it's a beautiful thing because I really believe that connection is the opposite of addiction and the opposite of all the illness that these women are suffering from with the disconnection. And I'm just so grateful that in the process of the murdering each other, you found this connection, which I think is going to be so exciting to watch on screen. Because it's like, if you just hate someone that you murdered, there's no drama there. It's when you love someone and you murder them. That's interesting.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. It's a great compliment. I thank you all, especially
Thank
Steve.
you, guys.
No,
Thank
I
you
want to
all.
cry.
You're the old grandma cries at everything.
Thank you all for your answers on that one. We're going to move along to your web.
Hi, thank you. My question is for Celina, and I apologize if I missed this. But I'm wondering if you got a chance to speak with Jodie and or members of her family to help you like fully occupy her headspace for this role. And if you did not get a chance to do that, if you had the opportunity to do so now, I'm curious to know if there's one pressing question you would ask her.
Ooh. I did not speak to Jodie or members of her family, but we were really lucky in that we had the real Donovan, Bering, and Tracy, who really knew Jodie. They were incarcerated with her. So we could make sure that we were trying to tell as best we could an accurate and respectful version of Jodie and the events that happened once she was in jail. I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to speak to Jodie. So really, I think the question that I would ask if I could sort of write her a little note and see what she says would just be, did you really think that you would get off? Did you truly believe that you would get away with the crime?
Right on. Well, thank you.
Can I ask something? Where does that come from? Like the thing of not really wanting to speak to her. Like when you were playing her, what was that? What was that like for you? How did you get through that feeling?
That's interesting. Thanks, Jamie.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. And
like,
I played a few
that on a moment-to-moment basis without judging. Do you know what I mean? Like, how did you break through your own?
Yeah.
How did you get through it?
It is interesting. It's the first time because I've played a few real people up until now, and I've been lucky enough to actually speak to them, and I've been so eager, and I've had so many questions for them. But in this case, Jodie, I mean, people have different opinions of Jodie, and it depends what corner of the web you go to. But she's a very manipulative.
Yours.
Yeah,
for me. It's about
you. The general opinion is that she's quite a manipulative person. She's probably not mentally well. And so I had a really wonderful script. I used that as my base. I watched her for mannerisms. I was also really aware that the Jodie that we were showing is a fictionalized version of Jodie. We're not showing the real Jodie. This is our version. And I tried to, as best I could, make it as accurate from what I'd seen as I could, and really allow audiences to come away making their own conclusions, not wanting to feed them an answer, but rather letting them decide for themselves from what they see.
Did you feel, sorry to ask so many questions, but I have one more question. So like the hurt that you feel, like the not wanting to speak to her, because for all the actors here, like how long does it take for you guys to come out of a role? Because it takes a toll on me. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
You know, like was there a hurt or a heartbreak that you felt inside of yourself, you know, being her, emerging with her? And did you feel like a sense of betrayal by her in a way? Like when you said like you wouldn't want to speak to her, like I'm just curious to know, you know, how everyone comes out of the process.
Yeah, I think when you're playing someone who potentially has really dark thoughts or dark intentions sometimes, and we all do, we're all made of light and dark, right? But when you're living in that headspace, it does stay with you, it resonates with you. And there were definitely times I would go and like listen to current day music or something to like snap out of it. I think those, like you don't want to end up in that too much. And you're also looking for ways that you are similar to that character, because you're looking for ins all the time. So you're looking for, oh, she sits with her legs crossed. I do that all the time. Or And then you have to remember, like, that I am not the character. We are not one, and I can put her to bed at the end of the day. That's why having a wig is nice. You can take it off.
I'm so sorry.
I'm going to jump in and push to the next question.
Okay, great. Our next question is from Jamie Steinberg. Jamie, do you want to unmute?
Yes. Thank you all so much for taking your time. I really was just about to ask what Jamie's question is how do you decompress? How do you shake off being such a dark or someone as we see as such a dark and intense individual? Celina offered her insights and I believe Jamie offered some insights as well. But for Cybill and Jennifer, are there ways you've learned over the years to decompress after playing these, dark and, as we would sometimes refer to them as, twisted individuals?
I'm all about the bath. I go straight into the bath and submerge my head and just like, I need to get her off of me. And I need to just go back. I literally just like beeline for the bathtub. And then I submerge my head and I just kind of just like get myself. And then I scrub and then I shave and then I polish and then I put cream. And then I just soothe myself. And I just go to bed just like pristine and free is how I feel. Like I just can't get into that bath fast enough.
Well, I think for me, removing that wig was one of the most important parts. I could leave that character at home the minute I'd taken that wig off. And it had been made very beautifully for me. So it was custom made and it's connected to me in a very profound way. Is that I think for all of us, I'm looking at great actresses and wonderful great actor. And I think we all have our ways of profoundly moving into creating another human being, someone we are not. Mm-hmm. And for me, since I started out in a way, my first picture was the last picture show. In many ways, you could say I started at the top and I've been working my way down ever since. So, but I've seen a lot of great films and I've seen, so I've kind of learned to put it aside and go home and then just be glad you're not that person.
Thanks, you guys. We're going to hop on to the next question from Christy Turnquist.
Okay, thank you.
Hi there. I'm with the Oregonian newspaper in Portland. So my question is about how to murder your husband, because obviously
well, she allegedly murdered her husband. She allegedly murdered her husband.
She was convicted. she
was convicted, but she's appealing.
Well, yes. But anyway, so obviously
there we go.
There's a lot of interest in the case right here. And I guess my question is for Tanya Lopez. Just on a simple basis, I was just wondering where the movie was filmed. And then on a second question, when you're doing these true stories, I mean, obviously people love true crime stories, but then there's also the factor of there's, victims' family members. So how do you balance kind of trying to tell the story from the woman's point of view, if she's the perpetrator or the alleged perpetrator, with sort of how the victim's family members feel?
That's a good question.
That's actually an excellent question. Thank you. This was filmed up in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. So we asked Steve and Cybill to go to Vancouver. But I think the question of respect and sensitivity is a real important one that we always ask. And, it's interesting if the person is convicted, because while we don't have a legal constraints, we do sort of respect both sides of the story. I think the harder ones to tell, and Gwen Shamblin, she died in a tragic accident. And with Jamie's movie, with Sherry Papini, we really wanted to show that she loved her children and also showed that the husband was, but we were really protecting the children. So I think we do our best to try and be respectful. There's many changes that we make or things that we eliminate. Maybe that's a better way to say it when it involves family members that are alive. But what we really want to do, especially if the victim, you know, we want to make sure that they are shown in a positive light and that they didn't do anything to be murdered or killed or anything. It wasn't any one thing that they did. But I actually think it's a very good question. And we wrestle with it. We do wrestle with it. But, you know, Lifetime, we really try to do the best that we can.
Right.
Thanks,
If I
Tanya.
may, being on set, if I may add to that, being on set, the level of respect towards all parties involved in this story is unparalleled to anything I've ever seen before. You know, it is the level of sensitivity that she's talking about is it's immediate, right? So if there's one line and I'm like, okay, what about this or da da da, or a filmmaker is like, you know, our director Marta, immediately like they're available, they're present. It's extremely delicate, the legalities of it, and also the sensitivity and the extreme sensitivity that is brought to these films is extraordinary, when you could just be like, oh, it's done and dusted, we don't care, you know, or we're just gonna do like the headline version. No, it's true. It's not just an exploration, it's deeper than that, and it takes a lot of balls, you know. It takes I don't know if that's like, if I can say that, that's like I don't know if like I can say that anymore, but it takes a lot of chutzpah, you know what I mean, to do that.
A lot of uterus.
And I mean, it's every single second.
I like chutzpah.
Every
I'm sorry.
second
I
from
just
all
happen to love
aspects.
chutzpah.
Chutzpah. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. We have time for 2 more questions. So we're going to go with So Unique Magazine first, and then that will be followed up by Valerie Milano.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi.
Good.
So Cybill and Celina kind of spoke on this. I wanted to know, at the end of the day, we're all human. So was it hard not to judge the character, the so-called villains in the films? Was it hard not to judge them in a negative way, or were you able to have compassion for them?
Well, for me, I had to have compassion in order to do this part, because if I didn't understand why I was doing it, I had to have intense reasons for doing it. And I think it did have a lot to do with the fact that my character's father was a violent alcoholic. I think that has a lot to do with, actually, my own father was a violent alcoholic. So I can really relate to that. But I would say that knowing that and also having experienced that myself, but though my father was also a great, wonderful man. So I have to say that Mr. William Shepherd was great. He was a great dad to me, but so I don't mean to complain. I have nothing to complain about.
Thank you.
Thanks. Valerie Milano, would you like to go next?
Yes, hi. Cybill, this is for you regarding preparing for your role. How many, I mean, did you read a lot of Brophy's novels, and did you talk about that?
I did not read a lot of her novels. The screenplay really had been written in such a marvelous way to contain her blog. So much of her blog, she tells her own story in her blog. And just simply with the screenplay being so brilliantly written and directed and everybody and acted by all my co-actors, really, it was, I'm sorry to cry, but it was one of the most wonderful experiences and profound I've ever had. I feel very fortunate to be here with all of you today, and I want to thank you all. Thank my wonderful co-star for being such a great, kind person. Thank you all.
Well, I just want to thank all of you. And, you know, there are, like I said, the writers and directors behind these movies and the passion that, you know, Cybill, you and Steve and Jennifer and Jaime and Celina put into these roles. It's why we do these movies. And it's why we are a big believer in supporting women on all sides, in front or behind the camera. So thank you guys for today. This was amazing. God, it was really
Thank
amazing.
you all.
I
It
just
was
think
just
these
wonderful.
powerful women.
I'm so happy. I'm so
Yeah,
happy to
Cybill, thank you, because I woke up crying today. I woke up crying, straight crying. I was weeping, crying. I was like,
no, I'm sitting here. I'm just a crybaby. That's what happens.
I'm so and
no, I actually love that
the
we
communion.
did it as a
It's the
group.
communion, you know? It's really powerful.
Thank you all. All
Thanks to
blessings to
community.
all of you.
Thank you.
Everybody,
Great.
vulnerability is your superpower, and it is your beauty and your humanness. And thank you for letting us see you, Cybill, especially. Like,
Yep.
it's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
You know, we're all so defended, and we play
So
such
grateful.
badass women. And the truth is that we're just like these little sensitive creatures, right? So that we can do our job.
Unless we get mad, watch out. You know.
Thank you, Tanya.
Boom. That's it.
Bye, guys. Have a wonderful
you all.
day. Kara,
Thank you all for being here
Kara?
today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful
Can't wait to see your movie.
Oh, good. Oh, good.